Hello, this is Lisa Lee, and welcome to this week's reading. We are going to be doing kind of like a Thanksgiving sort of a vibe with this. And I wanted to open it up just because it does tend to be a time of year where people are contending with something. I don't care what it is. Holidays are beautiful and wonderful and high five, but holidays are also times of reflection, times of grief, times of putting in a lot of effort to, there's a lot, right? And so let's go ahead and see where our guides want to take us with this, because that holiday itself is like, it has double meanings to it. Like it's simultaneously a story and a theme and a celebration about coming together and breaking bread and peace. But it's also like a complete hypocrisy, like when you actually look under the hood. And so there's something to that. And when we have this death card here, and we're at the tail end of like the Scorpio season, death and rebirth experience. I saw an astrology TikTok today that was talking about, I don't know, it's like a portal of like life and death, and the name was something I'd never heard. It was some like 13th planet. And 13 is a significant number right now. And so with nurture and death, let's get into it. Let's kind of just jump right in. Those are two very like intense topics to like begin upon. And I really don't see us sort of I felt so profoundly that this was going to be a message of hope and advice and instruction, because there are so many new beginnings that I was feeling with this. But the death card is doesn't get any new beginning more than death. Like death is definitely like a threshold and a place that you step through where like life was one thing and now it's something else, right? Now it's a different expression of consciousness. So let's go ahead and see what this death card is really speaking to. With the bottom of the deck energy being about nurture, something new is being born through this. That is there's something here. Okay, let's get into it. I get ahead of myself a little bit every once in a while. Okay, let's go ahead and pull some cards. The Wheel of Fortune. So there is major change, Strength card, and Temperance. What a beautiful combination of energies that is. So you're meant to nurture this death. That's interesting. Nurture death. Nurture death. So we always think about the midwife and we think about birth. There's a lot that was lost in translation when, we moved into the patriarchal religions and the patriarchal worship, because we didn't get to sort of like excavate the spiritual wealth with the death and birth process, since both of those things, because I'm seeing a midwife and I'm seeing a death doula. And so these are kind of like these bookends of like helping somebody through the labor of transformation. And so with this nurture energy at the bottom of the deck, I feel very powerfully that the energy that is with you right now, look at me with never being in it's ridiculous. I just looked up to see that like nothing was in frame. You are with an energy that is like, I feel there's an energy with you that is much like a death doula or a midwife, somebody who's coaching you, somebody who's like propping you up, like bringing in the ice chips. There is such a presence of nurturing you through the transition that is coming through with this reading, because the Wheel of Fortune is saying we're looking at change, and we're not just looking at change that's internal, although that's going to happen no matter what. If you're going to have change that's external, the internal is going to have the effect, and vice versa. But we're talking about an external change, a way in which your life looks tangibly different tomorrow than it does today. That doesn't have to be a traumatic thing, especially if you feel like any level of unsatisfaction with the life that you're currently kind of moving through, like transitioning through. And so the Strength card here is about taming something, the work of taming something. Something unruly, something that needs your attention, something that you have to kind of like really work with the environment on. And the Temperance card is about balance and health and healing. And there's a karmic balancing happening for you that's coming in, that you've called in. bottom of the deck energy with the Six of Cups. This is family. This is nostalgia. This is also like emotional generosity to a certain extent. Childhood. Since childhood, there's healing that's happening for you, like in this new like birthing. Like I see you being birthed. Let's see. I think I'm using, like, I'm being drawn to a different deck of cards. So I'm gonna make a couple adjustments here. There's something significant about moonstones. So let's look at the nature of this change with the Wheel of Fortune. Let's just kind of zero in on like what is the nature of it? What are we looking at here? There's an energy that is midwifing / death doula. They're coaching you through the transition. They are like walking you through it even. Definitely a very powerful guide. What is the Wheel of Fortune pointing to? What are we looking at in the way of the picture that's emerging? The thinking woman. The world. Okay, that world and Wheel of Fortune. We're talking about change. Change. We're talking about new chapter, new book, even at that level. The Garden Gate threshold. Okay, so that repeats sort of what we were asking a little bit. There's something about your mind and the way that you think and how that has life changing. Like, I don't usually think of like life-changing capacity, but there is something about your mind that can have like a significant impact on worldview, and you're kind of at the threshold of what it means to begin to speak from that place. And I do feel very powerfully that like this is part of your destiny, but yeah, I'm just making sure. Let me just... Thought leaders. Yeah, there's thought leaders there. You know, in this group, there are thought leaders. And there are those who like came with the seed of change, like built into who they are, what their life experience was going to be, and how it was going to tell a story. And so, you know, everything that it is to like come through a life, to take on a story and to transform it into something that we share with the world through living, through interacting, and also through what we give, the service like that we give in our presence when we meet others, but also in like the way that we talk about ourselves, what we offer the world in the way of our legacy. And legacy work is something that I'm being shown as like going to be a very big deal in the future. Like we're out here like in the frontiers of like self-documentation and being surveilled, really. And so legacy work is something that we don't even really see. But if you were able to sort of take that bird's eye view on like your eternity, like you're part of this major legacy. Like you're offering not just to the world around you, but to the world to come. And there's something about your legacy here where you are at the precipice of stepping into like a new form of communication almost. And so that's kind of what the change looks like. But with the bottom of the deck energy being about financial constraints, I think you've kind of come to the divine and been like, okay, I've got some financial constraints to deal with. And this is where we feel the labor pains. And this is where we feel kind of like the fears. Like with every death and rebirth, whether it be like the death doula, like that is helping you move from like the physical manifestation of your consciousness into a non-physical manifestation of your consciousness, or we're talking about like the birthing experience of from a non-physical form of consciousness into a physical form of consciousness. Either way, that process is going to be like there's tension. And so whatever you're worried about in the way of financial constraints, like it speaks to the strength card. Like there is a call for you to climb a mountain, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't mean like a hard, like miserable mountain, because I know that's not what we're talking about here with the Six of Cups energy at the bottom of the deck. This is a relatively like pleasant experience, but the financial constraints are not permanent, and they're only really there to get you to open yourself up to like a new way of doing things, a new way of thinking about things. Yeah, it's to get the ball rolling. I think your guides have tried to get the ball rolling before, and now they're like, we're going to get the ball rolling. And so you're going to get that ball rolling. Loyalty, change, and promises, celebration, and family. Why is family coming up here? Let's take a look at that. Why is family coming up here? By necessity. The thief. Wow. Huh. Interesting. Actually, your guides are pointing me in a new direction with the financial constraints. The financial constraints, like everything energetic, has a representation in the material world. And so I love to think about this in a number of different ways, but like your DNA instructs your body what to become because it's like an energetic that ends up being material. And your life kind of reflects like the mirror, you know, that is the energy that's going on, and the story of like the potential behind everything that becomes your life. And so with the Thief here and the financial constraints, like there's something about the neglect, right? These two cards sort of go together. And I don't think that we're talking about like money right now. Your guys are saying like, even if you have been experiencing some form of scarcity or some form of fear around finances, what our guides are kind of pointing to is like, there's a spiritual reality underpinning what manifests in that way. And for you, it is like related to like reckoning with some level of theft. Now, I don't want to frame that as like a crime even, because I'm seeing it energetically. So it looks like neglect. What was meant for you? What was your portion? You know, who took it? You know, what does that even mean, like spiritually and energetically? Because I get like this, whenever someone's stealing, I get a tickle in my left palm. And so there's something about like, you know, this, your aspirations, your ambition, your diligence, and the setbacks that have put you in some form of a position where this tension exists, that is kind of forcing a rebirth. That you're meant to understand that you are nurtured through this, but there is something here that needs to be tamed. And so with the Six of Cups here, like there's such an interesting mix of energy. Like there's the thing that you're trying to do, your ambition, your calling, essentially. You know, there's the support that is meant for you. Now, Six of Cups speaks of family, but it speaks of family in childhood. And family is more than just who you were born to biologically. Family at the spiritual level are the people who are contracted to help you grow. It's people who you contribute to their growth, and they contribute to your growth, and that is the spiritual contract between you. And so that's something that nurture kind of speaks to. And so there is something about those contracted to contribute to your growth and your aspiration and the balance coming in. Okay, so there's kind of a lot on the table, and it is speaking about family ties, but not just family that like you were born to, like your spiritual contracts in life and the spiritual contracts of those who are meant to, like, there's something there. I want to see what this means. So I see this movement happening on the left, meaning there's movement in your life. You're at the precipice of something new. There's tension that is kind of like pushing you out of like what would have been whatever the container that you were in with like your expression and your thinking. This is like the movement, you know, part of what's happening. And on the inside and on the spiritual plane, like we're dealing with like neglect from family, because that's showing up as a lack of resources in your emotional, mental, physical life that kind of translates into a lack of resources at a money level. And then this needs to be tamed. This needs to be somehow like worked through labor. Like we're talking about like giving birth or giving transformation. Like that's what we're going to look at right now. So let's go into that. And it's 13 minutes on the clock. 13 is a significant number. This is moving all the time. And that's okay because we're going to fix it as we go on. All right. Strength. What needs to be tamed? What does that look like? You are being assisted, but there is labor involved. Something about like a niggling, like I don't even usually use that word, niggling. Someone can look it up. It means like annoying, like picking at, like fear. There's a niggling fear. So that's like old-fashioned word, I think. Right, so okay. so far so good. I think something's coming up for you in story form, and I know that you look at that. This entire collective sort of has a mind for archetypes. And so you're looking at something that's like a story form in your life that's coming up around allocation of resources, misallocation of resources, the martyr here. Okay. Bottom of the deck heat, we have, oh, you know, this came up in my writing today. This is the Guardian of Saints. Humility, disillusionment, champion. I've been lamenting a world where people always choose to engage in battle instead of choosing otherwise, because we make the life, you know, the reality that we create in consensus. So, you know, the workaday life we're all stuck with, like we agree we have to go to work. That's the reality that we create in consensus. Has been one where, you know, competition and comparison and a system of competition, which is capitalism, the way that wealth even works, you know, how algorithms are being built, like all that stuff right now, is war. It's war, and it's war games. It's video games. It's war games. Like that's, we're kind of distilling down, like late stage capitalism is like the distilling down of like what we're looking at as being at war with ourselves, essentially. And so it's been like hard to look at that. Like it's been hard as like a seer to look at that. And so I've had to kind of think about the misallocation and like, you know, what it looks like in story form. What demented and deranged power, you know, actually, how it actually manifests. It's like these little tantrums that disrupt the order of the world, you know? And so when I was thinking about this, and I'm looking at this now, in some way or another in your life, you have been subject to the injustice of the tantrums of the very small. And you're very big. And you're meant for a very big future. And you're meant for a very big place in the world because of what you represent with this thinking woman. And how that, you know, every single thing is purposed in the ecosystem. What that purpose does in terms of worldview, and what it does in terms of bringing us from like a frame of mind, a theory of mind, you know, a perspective that limits us really in relationship to consciousness. It's like humanity and consciousness, the perspective that limits us. And you're standing at this garden gate and you're looking out at the horizon and you're really bringing something in the way of innovation. You're really bringing something in the way of change. And there has been a thief of your potential in the way of this. Like you can say it's the system, you know, you could say that it's the capitalism's like competition model, which really has in one way or another hurt you. Maybe you grew up with a lot of like disadvantage, disability, poverty. Maybe you deal with that as something that takes from your capacity to offer yourself to the world. Whatever this lack of resources ends up being, it's not a lack of resources for any other reason than something random. You were born where you were born. You have the you know, personality structure, or there is something disabling. I can kind of I'm you know, seeing that in a myriad of ways lately when I kind of look out at energy and energy structures. And so there is something that you have to overcome here in the way of the lack of resources. And so this is almost like the warrior and the battle, and you don't want to fight anymore. You don't want to have to play the war game. Because that's the deranged game that people are plugged in. They're addicted. They have an addiction to gambling with resources, basically, and the power that game offers them, and the weird little hits, right? And you can hear like the nature, you know, in the background, the nature of man, like the interruption, the disruption. So that's very big picture. And so I think that there's like some little picture version of like, you are going to have to overcome a lack of resources, whether it's fair or not, whether you want to see this or not, especially in relationship to family somehow, because temperance says that there's a balance that needs to be had. There's healing that has to come in. And so we're looking at, with family, lack of resources. And your guides are acknowledging that in one way or another. But they're moving you from whatever this position that you find yourself in is with Chiron by necessity. You're not going to stay under-resourced. You're moving. You have a great deal of spiritual assistance, and you have some level of assistance. There's some midwifery, and there's some death doula, you know, aspect to like the nurturing that's going to happen through this process for you. Hades is the Lord of riches, and also inevitability. Let me have a little bit of water. I think it's the inevitability that you kind of have problems with here. There's trust issues here. It wouldn't be wrestling and taming something if it was easy. And so what we're dealing with, and I don't know why this keeps on moving, what we're dealing with, I mean, this keeps moving. I can't help it. I put it together badly and I have to take it apart and do it again. And it sucks, right? But I think that that's part of what we're looking at here. There's some like way in which this disadvantage. So this is a good example. I'm going to use the life example. I have like a number of disabilities associated with like putting things together and stuff like that. And yet I have to do it all the time. And so, and I shouldn't have to do it all the time, but the way that things have happened, like I have had to put this table together and take it apart a number of times. And so like, I'm going to have to do it 3 or 4 times to get it right because of the way that I have to contend with a certain type of issue with my own constraints, my own like resources. If time is a resource, I lose valuable life to menial tasks that don't come easy to me. And other people have other versions of that. And I'm going to just cough because I'm getting over a flu. Like sickness comes in as a really good example of like curtailing your potential. And so even though that this wobbly table and it has to be put together and it's going to interrupt like the process of what it means to like give my gift to the world, that tension and that having to do it several times over, that's not punishment. And so to understand that like, you know, you're going to have to overcome some version of like something with a learning curve, with something is new, with it's uncomfortable, with like, I don't know what I'm like, you know, it's wobbly. And it's inevitable that you will see success. It's inevitable that if I put this table together 4 times, I'm going to like hit the jackpot and it's going to be perfect at a certain point. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to avoid the trial and error of whatever my learning curve is. A lot of times when we have to go through a period of trial and error, a labor where we're pushing and still the birth is not coming through, or we're gasping for breath and like, you know, we're still hanging between worlds and we don't feel here or there. Like there's something here about that, you know, being like part of this process of your strength and your growth. But it is inevitable that you will succeed because there is balance and there's equanimity. And if you have been putting in the work and putting in the work and putting in the work and putting in the work, and you haven't seen that success, there's a way in which your guys are like repositioning you. Like I know for myself, I have to do things differently to get the success that I want because I can't be positioned as I am. And so like that's everyone in one way or another right now. Like everyone is up against algorithms that have typecast them, and that's going to limit their reach. My algorithm typecasts me as a skeptic. I only reach skeptics, you know, and it's not based on my output, it's based on my use. And so when you think about like what each and every individual is up against when they're dealing with what it means to like bring their voice into the world, this garden gate, like there are gates here. There are things in the way that require pushing and maneuvering and figuring it out. And it's not punishment. It is annoying. The empire is always annoying. The institutions that were let's put it this way, because I'm seeing the Morgan here and I'm seeing webs and webs and webs. And so I kind of have to speak to this with the martyr. The algorithms used to just be institutions, you know, institutions that were like machines that didn't see things for what they were, but they churned people through the systems in order to like maximize war, you know, like that's how they operated. There was nothing fair about that. If you were born a peasant, you died a peasant because the organizing, you know, structure forced you to do so. It found your place for you. It decided what your place was. And through trial and error and trial and error and trial and error, humanity has gotten to a point where we've broken through, but the stronghold of those old institutions is now they're being transferred into algorithms that curtail people's progress in other ways, because there's, and so when I say that like human beings have always had to fight against something, it shouldn't be that way. It's counterintuitive. I think there's a death rattle. I think there's a breakthrough. I think we are changing, but where we are right now with like the limitations and the gates is that we have to push against them. We have to find ways to circumvent them. We have to acquiesce at the level of understanding how the infrastructure works in order to get the success that we need to break the infrastructure, right? So I have to first acknowledge that I'm going to be typecast as a skeptic, you know what I mean, before I can actually break through to the audience that would be receptive. Same thing with you in one way or another, or the others that like, I mean, I see this as like a vast array of people that are in one way or another involved in trying to get their voice heard and find their people, not necessarily for social media, but just to find their people. And so when it comes to things being hard, there being limits, it being unfair, you're also given the power and the strength and the ability to overcome the thief, to overcome the financial constraints. With the Wheel of Fortune here, there's some level of promise that you can do this, that you are built for it. And so let's take a look at that aspect here, because with the Weaver of Fate, you are in possession of a level of giftedness, of a level of value, with this Temperance card being about like tremendous spiritual assistance. Not like Minnie Winnie, you know what I mean? Not like a band of happy ancestors that are like marching you to like, you know, some form of like resolution about a problem. No, we are talking about spiritual assistance. And wherever you are with that, because sometimes spiritual assistance looks like a spanking and you're in trouble because you did it wrong. You know what I mean? And sometimes spiritual assistance looks like you're crying at the side of a mountain because you can't believe the love that brought you to the place that you find yourself. Like, spiritual assistance is not like a prosperity gospel, never was, never is, and it's going to get you out of this stranglehold with the martyr. You know, we have this shame, you know, this restitution and this honesty. Like, I feel like you bring through an honesty that is like self-annihilating almost. And so we're going to work on all of this. It's okay. Like, I thought this was going to be about like Thanksgiving, and I think that it is, but I think it's a different type of Thanksgiving. I think it's going to be thank you, like, to the transformation, to who you're meant to become, to all of the forces of nature and all of the forces really that are like very invested in your success here. And so that's where we're going to move the reading, is we're going to start to look at that, because the ambition and the diligence, despite all of these setbacks, this is a very Joan of Arc energy here. You're meant to be a champion. You are a champion. You're built to be a champion. Your guides have been picking a fight with you for a very long time. They've been goading you into a fight. Stand up for yourself. Compete. You can win. Compete. You can win. Compete. You can win. You know what the board is. You can look at the game and you can see exactly the path through the labyrinth you would need to take. And your guides are like, take it. And you're like, competing is for the pigs. I'd rather eat shit than compete. Like, I feel this for myself. So whoever I'm tapping into, like, we have this in common. And I'm going to speak right to you. Yes, competing is disgusting. It is below you. And it is for the pigs. That's true. But your guides created you. They plopped you into a time. They plopped you into a place. They plopped you into a world that you can't get anywhere without eating with the pigs. You have to eat with the pigs. You have to compete. And so your guides are really training you. You have to tame your hatred for the game to win it, because you're a designed champion to win it. You were plopped into this pig pit, but you were plopped into this pig pit with a plan that says, well, first thing you do is you win the game. But you are stopped at the gate saying, I'd rather freaking die than compete. That's disgusting. I'm not eating with the pigs. And this is where we have like, and I can feel someone laughing right now because they're like, wow, that's harsh, but there's a truth to it. And first of all, I love pigs. They're so cute. I'm not saying that, but this is the energy that is coming through, is kind of saying like, this is really, this is what we're talking about here. Because there's restitution for whatever the sacrifice was, whatever this thief did, whatever they took. And the thief is big and small. I see the thief showing up in a number of ways. You have this potential, you have a gift for the world, you have a destiny. And every little thing, you know, we're looking at a sea of like, so let's look here. Let's go over here. Let's see what the gods and the guides are doing. You're meant to fight. You've been picked. There's a fight being picked. Because your guides, basically, they put you in a position and they say, fight back. And you're like, no. And they put you in a position and they're like, fight back. And you're like, no. And they put you in a position and they're like, fight back. And you're like, no. This has been going on for a long time. And now your guides are like, you're going to fight because you have it in you. Because you're built for it. Because every single gene that expresses through your body, every ancestor that travels with you in the way of guidance, all of them are warriors. All of them. And yet you think you're a kitten. And not just a kitten. You know, I saw something come through somebody's personal reading, and it was like a declawed cat. You are here to win, and you're here to have so much in the way of like, you're meant to have fight. It's part of who you are. Imagine if the Queen of Wands like was conditioned to like never pick up like a fight. Like a whole part of who she is and how she expresses would be amputated. And so I want to look at this here, because with the Champion, like there's a disillusionment that you need to step into. Like you expect people to be good, and you're going to teach people to be good, and you're so good. You're not so good. You're actually being called out of the good girl or good boy or good, like you're being called out of that good behavior and into something with claws. Put your claws in. Whoever declawed you, thief, was hoping that you would never learn how to fight. And so let's think about that for a second, because the gate here does not have to stop you with the Wheel of Fortune. There is something here at play in terms of your success. Don't be afraid with the Ten of Wands. I can feel that. I can feel that little fear. Because there's something to overcome in the way of resources. Not having the resources at the level of family means it goes all the way back. You know, that's something to look at here. You know, with that Ace of Swords truth. Oof, I just felt such a rush of energy go through me with that King of Pentacles energy, and the Star and the Hierophant, and the card went flying. Okay, so we've got like action on the board. You know, the Page of Wands. There's something here coming in very quickly. Let me get up and pick up that card, because it flew, literally flew. So something is flying at you. Let's find out what it is. It's on the floor. Executive functioning. Okay, 8 of Swords. Why do we hate that? we hate that because you've been tied up this life. We're being called to look at a piece of truth here, and it wouldn't have been such a feature of our reading if it wasn't important. 8 of Swords. We're going to be honest with ourselves. You've been tied up. Your experience of the life that you have had, every experience of life that you've experienced in one way or another, is an experience of things just tying you up and tying you up and tying you up. You try to get up, something ties you up. You try to get up, something ties you up. What is that about? With the Star card on the bottom of the deck, again, the Star card, the Temperance, like these are similar energies of healing, balance, assistance, uplifting in relationship to healing, being like the kind of, I always see the star as like the light that shines. You become like a beacon. You know, you heal and it's like this, you know, you're just like rising up from the dead. That phoenix becomes like a star that is then a beacon that like then shows the way. And so it's an elevated position in relationship to a rise, and that rise is like a lightness of being. So I love the Star card for you, because what we're seeing come in very quickly, you know, this is going to end, and this is going to end fast. And there's something about this with, Knight of Swords, man. This is action coming in, like something taking action, someone taking action very quickly. So what I want to see with this, with the thinking woman, there's a lot here with the Ten of Wands. And I think that these are burdens that you carry. So part of what it is to tame the constraints, financial constraints, also resource constraints. I don't care whether this is money or friends. You know, like whatever this constraints around finances, whatever the thief is, the thief of time for you to invest in your own well-being, like it's endless, right? And so there's something here that you have to somehow negotiate with in the way of struggle, in the way of birthing pains. And it has to do with this Ten of Wands load on your back. And so this could be like, there is a real call to look at the lack of resources. And looking at the lack of resources here, you know, starts with the Six of Cups. I feel like it's from childhood. It's related to family. You have like Ten of Wands is like you're about to hit burnout, or you hit burnout. It's a breaking point. You can't carry the load of your life and everything that it costs you in time and energy to take care of yourself. There's a discrepancy here with lack of resources. There's a breaking point here. And so I think that with that Ten of Wands, you know, it's almost like that's where we're starting, or that's where we are, or that's where we're being honest about ourselves that we feel. With the Page of Pentacles, this is about pacing. And so you're carrying a heavy load, and your guides are like, you know, step one, recognize that you're carrying a heavy load. You are under-resourced since childhood. That's the labor. That's it right there. That's where you're going to have to push through. That's where you're going to have to understand at a very like basic level that you have all the champion's gifts, but that you're going to have to fight, because this is true. You are under-resourced. It is going to take an energy of like, I don't want to say you have to be in a fight, because the pacing here tells me that it's different than you think. It's not about like the sword swinging. It's about strategy. Sometimes it's just about strategy, and it's not about stamina. And so the first thing that your guys are saying is it's not about stamina. It's about strategy. So when it comes to winning, you know, basically winning, taming this beast, you know, the labor pains, what it means to push this out of your way, the clarity comes in and understanding that it's about strategy, not stamina, because you're not going to have the stamina, because that's the financial constraint. That's the under-resourced. Something that you can probably trace back to childhood, where the things that you were meant to have and succeed at were stolen by a lack of stamina, because there's something about that that just has to be contended with. Like, I don't want you to feel like this is going to shut you down, because your guides are saying, no, you're built to overcome it. That Sun card says, like, you're built to overcome it. You can overcome this, Page of Cups. You know, like, if you feel like I'm not capable, I'm under-resourced, if there's a part of you that just feels like a child that can't grow up, that like the grown-up train doesn't stop and pick you up, there's something here about the Sun card being like, this is that champion power within you. And that if you can pace yourself, and we're going to talk about what pacing yourself means, if you can pace yourself here with what you're carrying in the way of under-resourced, you can win. It's strategy, not stamina. So your guide's saying you do have what it takes to win, but it has to be strategy. It's not going to be stamina. So right there, they kind of want to reposition you around like a truer way of approaching this with the World card. So let's see what else your guys want to say. And my stomach just hurt me for some reason. I just felt like a wave of like, ooh, stomach. And I think that there is something about health. And Knight of Pentacles, you do have to pace yourself. Your guys are saying it twice. They're like, pace yourself, pace yourself, pace yourself. Yeah, and then every time the table is just wobbly, I would give anything for somebody who actually knows how to put a table together to do this for me. But I'm also just saying that. I don't want anybody to offer to help me, basically, because that would be, but yeah, no, the stupid table. Three of Pentacles, though, working together, right? So there's something you got to work on here, because I just said something out loud that I was like, regret instantly. But that's the thing. I think it's similar. You know, I don't think that anything comes through a reading arbitrarily with this martyr here. There's something at play with, like, you know, that you need to contribute to the building of, and it's not alone. Three of Pentacles is building something really big, but it's not alone. And so when we think about that, let's take a look. That just threw me off a little bit. Champion. Building something with others. Pacing yourself. Let's look at that. Pacing yourself, I think that's a big deal. And I'm just trying to see where our guides want me to go with this. All right, over here, I'm gonna get, this is an interesting deck for that question. And then, okay, 2 red decks. So you're passionate and you can get really angry. I think that there's like passion and anger and like lots of misdirecting that goes on with that stuff. Managing your moods seems to be that's part of this Ten of Wands situation, is like managing like the nervous system in one way or another. So pacing is a really big deal. The practicality of pacing is a really big deal. Like I see somebody who is like a championship, like Olympian, but what got that championship Olympian to the championship Olympian place was a lot of practice and a lot of very strategic every single day. And like, I understand that for many of us, myself included, on the neurodivergent, you know, spectrum, like being told to like stay within a schedule is basically like a recipe for certain like burnout, 10 of wands. So there is strategy that goes into what it means to like accommodate your particular nervous system so that you can actually do what you're here to do. There is something to be said for understanding that it might take you a really long time to do something, and that doesn't disqualify you from success. It does take a lot of your time. There's a thief there. Thief of your potential is like the under-resourced. But that you still have what it takes. One does not cancel out the other. It can feel that way, but it doesn't. And so with small and mighty, yeah, as we allow more room for joy, we might be surprised by just how much we find. That's nurturance and that's sustenance, curiosity. While our emotions can offer really helpful data, sometimes they prioritize efficiency over accuracy. And with the bottom of the deck being, hey, sadness in reverse. But embracing more painful emotions like sadness can actually help us discover what matters to us most and reclaim authenticity in our responses and behaviors. This is in reverse because there's something to be said for taming the wild beast. There's something to be said for this process here. So when we think about pacing, like I know that I'm having conversation with people who don't like the area of you know, inquiry that we're currently in, but this might be really hard for you, and I feel like it's really hard for you because there's I'm seeing a boat that capsizes and capsizes and capsizes. That's like meltdown. That's overwhelm. That is a nervous system that is in one way or another under-resourced, and so you are going to have to allow more room for joy in your life and actually schedule it in, because it's going to offset whatever that drive is. And that might be hard. I can feel a tension about that. We're talking about labor pains. We're not talking about an easy process. Like for you, emotions that are going to come up through what it is to structure yourself, you might have to feel like a moment of capsizing. You might have to give in to whatever that capsizing is. But you're going to stand up again, because sometimes those emotions offer something really helpful. And so you're going to let yourself capsize. And I think that you like avoid the capsizing at all costs and keep yourself from ever really truly getting to that place of success. And so I think that you're going to chart your path. You're going to make a goal. And between point A and point B being the goal, if you capsize, you're going to still go to point B. If you didn't have the result that you expected, you're still going to go to point B. You're still going to keep going at that goal. You're not going to let the fact that it takes you 5 times to put the table together keep you from the success of a table that's finally together. That 5 times that it takes, it's part of like the institution is the algorithm. The algorithm, like you're going to be against some form of a fight, but you can overcome it. And so I think that you don't think that you can, or you haven't had that experience before. And maybe there's like a lot of shutdown around effort because of this martyr card. And let me get some more water. That martyr card speaks to like a dying as a result of like not being met in your need. What happens to the martyr? They give everything, and then when it comes time for them to receive in one way or another, the crowd is willing to murder them. You know what I mean? Like there's something there about the martyr being in a sacrifice for others. Others grow at their sacrifice instead of others growing in relationship to them. And so where there was opposition, there has to be honesty. You have to be honest with yourself. There's struggle here. You have to be honest with yourself. There is a need for strategy here. You have to be honest with yourself. That strategies might make you cry. You might have to capsize with the sadness here. You know, like anytime we start something new, like you might have to do that. But every single time you stand up again, there is something helpful. There's helpful data. And we can't prioritize efficiency over accuracy. Like you can't afford to do that because you need strategy, not stamina. And so you're not going to let the thief steal your opportunities because you're under-resourced. You're going to find a way to resource yourself enough, just enough to get from point A to point B, because you're going to have to take it one step at a time. You cannot force this. You cannot rush this. Your success is guaranteed if you're pacing yourself, if you're strategy over stamina. And no one likes to hear this stuff. I know that is the Exorcist. No one likes to hear it. You know, we want to hear that we're going to be picked up and we're going to be flown away. But with the child nature, you know, I felt like this is like taming. We're taming that. I feel like there's something really beautiful about this, you know, in that like you're being shown to me as a feral, something feral. And your guys are saying you're going to have keys to that castle. And there's a price, there's a labor, there's a transformation. You have to go from something that is feral to something that is an inside pet. And it's warm in there, there's food in there. This is where the wealth sort of situation ends up being. But that feral you have to go through a process of learning how to, you know, use the box or whatever, litter box. I don't know, like I'm seeing this like a pet. And there's some kind of transformation here for you around picking up like habits, like feral to domesticated involves training, and it involves something very strategic around like learning the rules of like that space. And it does feel against nature, you know. It might feel like it's against your nature, but your guides are sort of saying that there is something really beautiful here. And I'm going to get just a couple more cards because I don't want to leave us with like a list of chores to do. And I think that like the good news is you're going to be a champion. The good news is through whatever, there are setbacks, you're dealing with setbacks, but whatever these setbacks are, they're refining what it is that you're creating to such a degree that it's going to get you to the next place, even if you don't know what that next place is yet. Because the shadow attribute of the Exorcist is fear of facing our own demons. You are guaranteed success, but you got to face your own demons. And we all do, in one way or another. Because when you can free yourself from the destructive impulses, what is the destructive impulse? I don't want to eat with the pigs. I mean, I don't know, that is just like so harsh, but that's what it is. I don't want to compete. You know what I mean? I don't want to play that game. You got to free yourself from the game, which means that you can't like sabotage yourself every single time you're kind of facing what it means to have to deal with the rules of some stupid, gross institution or some annoying algorithm or people who suck. You know what I mean? Because you're going to deal with some variation of all of those things in whatever this process is, but Spirit does have your back. You have a very powerful energy here nurturing this transformation. You have powerful energies here nurturing your rebirth. That exorcism here, freeing yourself and others from destructive impulses, that's not a one-person job. There's Three of Pentacles. There are energies with you, even if you can't see them. And there are people contracted to help you, you know, and sometimes people fail. There are people that fail. There's no two ways about it. And there are those of us that know what it is to be failed. And there's spiritual reckoning for that kind of stuff. But your guides will always find a way. And so there is a call for faith and being curious, allowing yourself to stay curious. How are you going to allow more room for joy? How are you going to allow yourself to live in a way that is strategic so that there is an opportunity for ups and downs and not just like drive and crash, drive and crash, drive and crash? Because I feel like there's something to that. And so let's get a couple more cards here. See the bigger picture. You have it in you. You can do this. And be generous of spirit. Thanksgiving is like this is a strange surrender now. This is a strange topic for Thanksgiving. But I think that when we started this reading, we kind of looked at the fact that like Thanksgiving has two meanings. The surface meaning is friends and happiness and joy and sharing and gratitude and all of life's bounty and peace making and coming together and building a nation, right? That's the advertisement. But the reality was genocide. And so I think that for you, like the ideal, what you want, what you're after, what you're looking at in the way of quality of life, that ideal is set as a goal. But then you have to confront the reality. The reality is it's an unfair situation, and that to get to that goal, you have to play some kind of a crazy war game. Like, this is a weird message that's coming through. But your guides are saying, you know, but you're guaranteed to have a championship experience of this. Because even though you have been a martyr, there's restitution in this for you. Even though you have faced great opposition and when it meant to bring your message to the world, there's an inevitability to the equanimity. Like, that's what this Hades card is. There's an inevitability to like a system of judgment here. And so by necessity, in relationship, even with all of these constraints, you are being pushed to a level of honesty and introspection with the strength card here that will really allow you to sort of take the tactical steps to give yourself what you deserve. And you are being called to give yourself what you deserve. It's not gonna come from anywhere else. And that's not because it should be that way, okay? It should not be that way. But we don't live in a world right now that is sane. And so there is no deserve. and we sort of have to operate with that reality. We're in a war game. We're being forced, everybody's forced to this horrible charade. Everybody's forced to like put their life into this stupid war. You know, somebody else's like gambling addiction, you know, the people who are running things. And my voice is going because it is hard. This is hard. And I know that we look to spirituality to be a salvation doctrine. Save me from the reality of this horrible situation that I find myself in. Come to my rescue so that I don't have to fight. Come to my rescue so that I don't have to be forced into the battlefield every single day, battling for my place in the world, you know, with a bunch of other people who are battling for their place in the world. And you know what? Nobody's placed in the world because the system is ridiculous. It's so stupid. Of course, you don't want to play this game. Of course, you don't want to be in this situation. And we want our spirituality to save us from it. But we're meant to bring our spirituality into the battlefield to transform things from within, because we won, because we can win. Because that's what spirituality can offer us, is like a winning strategy. It can offer us the assistance of the gods in the way that we speak and what we say, and the inspiration that moves us from point A to point B. In all the trial and error, we become stronger. And that's where you get that elevated position. That's where you get that lighthouse effect. It comes from going through, not around. And so we're going to be curried. You know, we are helped. There is this nurturing that happens from within ourselves and the energies that are around us. And that's a guarantee. And you can win and you will win, even though you're under-resourced from childhood. And there's something about being honest with yourself about the box that we're in. And that's not seeing the bigger picture with the box and the exorcist and the surrender is not about, and I can't even talk. Sorry, I'm still getting over a flu. And we do not live in a world that like accommodates rest for very long. So even though I'm not complaining, and I'm looking at this reading and I'm listening to like sort of the chorus of information's coming through with our guides. And I'm understanding this for all of you, and I'm understanding this for myself, and I'm hearing it as kind of a call to fight. And it is making me want to lose my voice because I'm in this collective. I know what you're looking at. I know what you're feeling. I see the chorus of guides kind of speaking with and through and around us about all of these things. They are in an ecosystem. This is not a hierarchical system at a spiritual level. It's a hierarchical system at a matrix level. And one is not the correct form, and it doesn't fit over the other in that neat way. There is no salvation. You're not being plucked up and lifted. You're being assisted in what it means to participate. That is the nature of what it happens. That is the nature of nature. That is the gate. That is the thing that we are kind of have to there's no creating growth without the tension. That's what we have to move through in the way of tension. We're assured the rebirth. We're assured the new life, but we have to push through the labor. Nature tells us that. And so when we surrender, when we accept this, it doesn't push us further into a box. It gives us a point of reference that we're working on when we create hope in the space of these shadows. Whereas that light comes in over the shadow and creates a form that we can then move through, that we can then see ourselves through. Because it's like we're this little zygote, and all of the way in, that's the seed. You know, the seed was here a second ago, but like this little zygote is the seed. The seed of what you're meant to become still has to interface with all the genes and form around the structure of the DNA sequencing and the instruction. You don't get to just choose to become. Like there's something that encodes based on whatever is going into the experience of you becoming you. And so it's like we have to sort of understand that there is a prayer here, and you guys have heard your prayer, and they're going to feed you and nurture your growth through your application of effort. And that application of effort with your ambition and your diligence, it isn't without setbacks. And your guys are sort of guaranteeing you a journey here with this. They're not saying you're going to get there tomorrow. They're going to say you need strategy, and you need one step at a time, and you need to almost accept the saddle, you know, like again, I'm coming back to feral to indoor pet. Your place in this riddle and your place in the world, that your place in what it is that you're meant to become, there are some structures that you have to accept in the way of like feral to domesticated. And I want you, you know, if you want to talk about this, you know, if you want to kind of, you know, I hope that you guys utilize comment sections. And I'm not going to suggest that you do, but I kind of hope that you do. It helps the whole collective along. And I think a lot of people are going through this in one way or another, under-resourced at the level of family with the High Priestess, under-resourced at the level of allies with the High Priestess. I mean, where are we without each other with the vision of what we want to create? Because we create it together. And so this threshold is where we stand collectively, and what it means to bring our gifts into the world. We're not playing, it's like we have to play this stupid game. And in a perfect world, everybody who is on the same side would be on the same team and we could move together. But because of the level of competition that exists, there's no groups getting together and creating together and moving together. There really isn't. And I'm not talking about this collective alone. I'm talking about the social fabric that had us working together and creating together has broken down so completely at the level of individual desperation and competition, you know, at identity. And what it means for you to step into this vision is actually to step away from that. But that's a process. And, you know, that entails a lot. And there is an effort here. And there is a labor here. And it can't be avoided. But the guarantee with the Wheel of Fortune and the threshold is you are on the threshold of this change. You are dealing with the constraints of being under-resourced. And what you have in the way of resources with that Champion card that you're meant to really tap into, be generous of spirit. Spirit is being generous with you. There's the power here to overcome all of this. And so I think that the Thanksgiving reading is less about stuff that we're thankful for and more and you know, more to this experience of like, well, what are we looking at? What are we really looking at in the way of our success? Our personal success, group success, you know, like what does it mean to sort of like build a worldview? What does it mean to participate in that? It's messaging, you know, more than anything else. It's the messaging that you have for yourself. It's the messaging you bring to others. And I think that messaging kind of speaks of that 10 of Wands experience. Yeah, Mercury and communicating it. And so begin to communicate with yourself very intentionally. Begin to make time to really journal and really get clear on your destiny. Because where you're going in your career, again, you know, with the 5th house, there's power behind what is meant for you. It's an investment though, and it's a game. You know, investment, gambles, and other games, like it's a game and you get to create into it, and it's not easy. And there is a call to sort of like lower yourself, not because you deserve less or you should have to go through this, or, you know, you're battling with some form of disability or sickness. Like that's a lot of the people in the collective, myself included. And so I kind of invite you into understanding that there's power, that there's like there is so much for you in this threshold and overcoming this constraints. You may experience capsizing and emotional overwhelm, but as you stand up again, those emotions are going to offer you something that will get you out of the race. And you're meant to sort of really be strategic about nurturing yourself, connecting with the divine. There's a little bit of a fight here. There's nothing can be, like, I can't say that there's anything that can be done about that, except that you will win if you stop hiding your true self. You will win if you get clear on your destiny. And getting clear on your destiny is also getting clear on who you are, what you truly want, and what it means for you to bring yourself into the world based on that. And that's a big job. That's a lot of shadow work. That's like a labyrinth situation. You know, that's like answering the riddle. And that vision is where you start your journey, and you begin to work towards your goals, getting to that vision and what it means for you to actually have a goal, see it, and get there. That strategy, that one step at a time. I don't see an instant success situation, and I'm going to double check that, because even though this is getting long, I want to know. Because I did see like that something was going to happen very quickly. All right, let's look here. We're going to transform these two sets of cards. We're going to go from under resource to something else. Where is the success coming in? What does it look like? How does it sort of unroll? How does this work? Door to personal healing and happiness, and door to romance. Romance is not just like falling in love with a person. It's also like having like erotic like, you know, it's angel of love. Okay, well, maybe falling in love is part of that strategy. Okay, fine. So there's something here about like, all right, listen, let's get some more cards. Actually, I'm like, really? That's an interesting twist that I wasn't expecting. You will win. There's a championship in this for you. Like, your guides are guiding you towards something. So that door to personal healing and happiness, that's there for you. And that door to romance, that's there for you, isn't somehow, like, it's in relationship to you answering this question about your destiny, who you are, where you're going, and how you want to bring your gift to the world. There's something about that is also strategy that like gets you healing at the level of love, healing at the level of your heart. There is an intersection here between romance and love and your personal happiness, and what's meant for you. And so your guides are saying like what's happening quickly with the Thief here coming out again, and the Forgotten. Have you forgotten your heart? Have you forgotten your truest desire? Like, is there something to that? The Wise One, tradition and order. We kind of end this on a mystery. I sort of hate to do that. The Patreon mentorship and finances, and the Weaver, rediscovery and transition. Okay, how is this going to play itself out? All right, is it an overnight success? No, but it entails you falling in love with life again. You can't bring what you are destined to bring into this world. Your career and the communication, right? I see communication here with the Mercury card and the 10th house. Your career and communication and what you're meant to communicate and where you're going is so dependent on your alchemy, your personal alchemy, that your success is very tied to you falling in love with love again and life again. Like, you have to fall in love with life again. You have to open yourself up to it. And so whatever this thief of your happiness, thief of your hope, thief of your desire, whatever you have buried and forgotten under like some form of giving up, or some form of just feeling like there are things that are not for you, there's something coming in the way of this effort, this strategy here, strategy towards falling in love with your life, wanting to live, wanting to contribute, wanting to show up, rediscovering what it is that you love about life and what you want to bring into the world. Like, that's this transition. And so it's not so much about instant success as it is about instant like quality of life. And I don't have more here other than there's something answering to what was stolen, what was left behind, your fear of failure. is going to be overcome. And in that, we have a whole door of an experience of life that you've never had. It's like you haven't had this experience of happiness. You haven't had this experience of romance. You haven't had this experience of love. So there's strategy, there's a push, there's a labor, there's hope, there's getting clear on your destiny, there's getting clear on your vision and getting clear on where you're going and communicating that. But ultimately, there will be help, there will be support. There will be fiscal support here and people supporting what you discover and what you offer in the way of that rediscovery. And so I think that there's a journey for you to go on with this. And your guides are saying and suggesting that you should be thankful, because even though there's labor, even though there's pushing, you're going to win. And so that's where we're going to leave this, nature child. That's where we're going to leave this, magical child. You're coming in as feral, right? And so your guys are saying, you know, this is where you enter the reading. This is where we are right now. Where you're being brought in the way of surrender to the change that's coming in involves growing up a little bit. It's that domesticating. And don't be afraid of it, because your guys are saying you're on the threshold of so much happiness and a revelation about like being loved in the world and receiving love and having what you're looking for. We're going from like the thief and being under-resourced to being so resourced. The High Priestess and the Six of Cups in family. And again, family is not just your blood. It's the people who are contracted to support your growth in this world. So we're going to see that change. We're going to see change around that. And so that is what we are grateful for, and that is what we are entering this next season with. And so with that, we're going to end our reading, and I'll see you guys again soon.